It's a great pleasure and a real honor to be here at the Beijing Forum in such distinguished company. I want to thank in particular President Lin Jianhua for his generous invitation, and my good friend and great historian, Professor Neo Dayong, for his invitation. The topic of my talk is really one of the big questions of the 21st century. Will China lead? 中国能否领导世界? Will the 21st century be the Chinese century? 21世纪会做中国世纪? And when I think about this, I am a historian, so I think about it in historical terms, and I go back 100 years to this gentleman, our old friend Yuan Shikai. And, you know, many people 100 years ago thought that the 20th century would be the Chinese century. President Yuan Shikai actually asked the president of my university, Charles Eliot, to send him a constitutional advisor to help write the first constitution of the Republic of China. And this advisor, Mr. Frank Goodenough, helped to write two constitutions for Zhonghua for the Republic of China. The first one made Yuan Shikai president for life, and the second one would have made him emperor if he had not died first. So this is Harvard's contribution to Chinese democracy. And it may be why we are not always asked for advice these days. But you know, in his day, many people thought that the 20th century would be the Chinese century. There are many books published 100 years ago with titles like The Rise of China, The Ascent of China. There's a book entitled As The Dragon Awakes. A very positive book on Yuan Shikai called Yuan Shikai Sa Vie et Son Temps, published in Belgium, and a book entitled The Rise of China, An Inevitable If Unfortunate Occurrence. These are the books published 100 years ago. Today we have books, many similar titles. The Rise of China, The Ascent of China, The Dragon Awakes, Deng Xiaoping and the Rise of China. One of my students has written a book called As China Goes, So Goes the World. So I want you to remember one thing from this talk if you remember nothing else. Most of these books being published today are garbage. Don't read them. Read mine. Available on Amazon.com, Harvard Business School Publishing. But you know, and we all know, that China under Yuan Shikai did not become a democracy, and China became a highly militarized republic, perhaps necessarily in order to defend itself in a hostile world. And one can see this from the clothing of the leaders of modern China. Mr. Yuan Shikai, Chiang Kai-shek, who saved the country in the Second World War. I always tell my students, 没有张介石就没有新中国. Without Chiang Kai-shek, there is no new China. I say only, this is half joking, only Chiang Kai-shek could have saved China during the Second World War, and probably only Chiang Kai-shek could have lost it to the communists afterwards. But that's a different and longer story that we have time for today. China stands up as a great power, and is a great power already in 1945, not yet before 1940. And the point that I want to make, and the point that I make in this book, is that China's strength as a military power, and you see, cut from the same cloth, Mao Zedong, and today's military leaders, and civilian leaders overseeing the military. China's strength as a power has been not just the last 10, 20, 30, it's been 100 years in the making. The same thing, I would argue, is true in business. If you look at the Center of Commerce, Nanjing Road in Shanghai in 1909, or look at Shanghai in the 1930s, when Shanghai is the center of East Asian commerce and culture. It is the center, the crossroads of the world for East Asia, at a time when Hong Kong is a sad and quiet little colonial backwater. It is home to China's first golden age of modern business. We're now in the second. It's home to the first of modern middle class or of middle class aspiration. And I was reminded of this a few years ago when I went to the 10th anniversary of the Zhongguoqi, the China Entrepreneurs Forum, which meets every year in Yaohui, in Dongbei, the coldest place I've ever been in my life. And these are great Chinese private entrepreneurs. They invited a foreigner to come give a speech. But the serious speech was by Mr. Chen Dongsheng, then the chairman of the Zhongguoqi, the head of the China Entrepreneurs Forum. And he said, we must remember, we business people today, that we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. People who are the founders of modern Chinese enterprise. And he emphasized, for example, the great industrialist John Jen and others, the founders of modern Chinese social responsibility in the 19th and early 20th century. And the point here, I just want to make it very briefly, is that China's strength in business is also not the last 10 or 20 years or so. It's not it has been at least 100 years in the making. The same is true, I argue, in infrastructure. Su Zhongshan's most important speech, book, at least in my view, it's probably not even something to read, but it's this book, The International Development of China, published in 1921, where he set out the ideal of a developmental state, of what he called a dictatorship of engineers. And if you look at his railway plans from the 1920s, extraordinarily ambitious railway plans, even larger than today's engineering state here in the People's Republic has accomplished today, if one looks at the proposed railway plans for 2020 here in China. Although it must be said that even Sun Yat-sen never imagined that there would be a railroad to Taiwan, as is on this. And I think perhaps this is one of the subjects of President Xi and President Ma when they meet tomorrow in Singapore. In any event, China has become an infrastructure state in which China is leading the world. And this infrastructure state is a state that has been also 100 years in the making of the planning. You know, the Three Gorges Dam itself, first referred to in planning by Sun Yat-sen, who nearly set the pace in which it would be in 1921. So we have a long-standing foundation of the prosperous, powerful China that we know today. And the same is true, I shall now turn to the main topic, education. 1905 is the last time these examination compounds would be used, and they would be replaced by modern institutions such as Jinling College in Nanjing University, a women's college with a close relationship with Smith College in Massachusetts, but now part of Nanjing University, or National Central University in Nanjing, founded by John Kashek in 1930. National Central University, founded and modeled explicitly on the best university in the world in 1930. So let me ask anyone in the audience very quickly, what's the best university in the world in 1930? Beijing, sure. I'm sorry. Not yet in 1930. Anybody? Definitely not Harvard. Harvard not even in the top. Almost surely, most people would recognize the University of Berlin, the model of all modern research universities, as the best university in the world in 1930. And you know that what was then Zhongyang Dashi was modeled on the University of Berlin because there's a Brandenburg Gate welcoming you into. We can look also here at Tsinghua University across the street, founded in the last year of the last emperor of the last dynasty of Imperial China, but modeled initially on an American model to send students abroad. Modeled, if you look at this from the sky, it kind of looks like the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And in fact, it was the president of the University of Illinois who convinced President Roosevelt to remit the Boxer indemnity funds to fund and found Tsinghua University. And the Grand Auditorium is a virtual, I don't know which is the replica of which, of the Grand Auditorium at Urbana-Champaign. So it goes at a Midwestern campus. The point here, the larger point being, the intellectual and architectural origins of every great Chinese university today are international. origin. This is a Midwestern-looking campus, to be sure, and it would be replaced by Moscow State, as it were, in a period of extraordinary and often positive Soviet influence on higher education in the 1950s and after. And then, of course, it's becoming now a more internationalized place with the founding of Schwarzman Scholars and Schwarzman College at Tsinghua University, a college born to send Chinese away. Tsinghua University now seeks to welcome the world. And this is even more true when one thinks of the history of this great university, Peking University. Yenching University, the campus of Peking University today, founded in the 1920s. One can see this beautiful campus built in that time, called in English Peking University, but you can see in the Chinese Yenching on this. Home to, I think, one of the most extraordinary experiments in the liberal arts and sciences anywhere in the world, UNK College at Peking University, and home also to an academy, Beijing, designed to bring the best and the brightest, just begun this year, to China, to understand China in a rigorous program of Chinese studies here at Peking University. And so the broad point is here, when one thinks of, and I think of this, one hears this all the time, oh, you know, there's the West and there's the East. Well, in universities, there is not a West and an East. There is the world of universities, and that's the subtitle of my talk, because we are all patterned in some ways or another on similar models, and we have all borrowed, in my case of Harvard, plagiarized from many different universities. And so this is one reason why the world is coming to China. Well, let me first focus on President Lin's previous university. You can get a sense of the ambition and scope of Chinese universities by looking at Zhejiang University, which now has, I think, maybe 8 different campuses. This is one of the new campuses of Zhejiang University. This is another one of the new campuses of Zhejiang University. This is an extraordinary place, a very edgy place. It even, because it's in Zhejiang province, it even has a program called Zhangjie, or Jindai Zhongguo研究中心, the Chiang Kai-shek and Modern China Research Center. And they even let me, a foreigner, be a member of this institute. And I even got to meet Chiang Kai-shek, or an actor who looks a little bit like him. The growth of Chinese universities today is without parallel. The plan for 2010 already having been exceeded, of more than 35 million people enrolled in Chinese universities, more than 200 million people, the goal for 2020 with higher education. The growth of private universities. I have a Harvard Business School case on this gentleman, Wang Tong of Xi'an, a place of now 35,000 students, and a very ambitious gentleman. China is home today, as it was before 1949, to one of the most diverse, most exciting, most creative systems of higher education in the world, but now also massively the largest. As President Lin has shown, there's great room for growth outside of Beijing, Shanghai, and the Xi'an areas, because so much of China's educational resources have been concentrated there. So there's enormous capacity for growth, and China is the fastest growing system in higher education in the world in quality as well as quantity. 100 years ago, if there were rankings like this, 8 of the top 10 universities in the world would have been German universities, and the other 2 probably British. Today, by some rankings, not one of the top 50 universities in the world is a German university. And by most rankings, at least 2 Chinese universities are in the top 50 of the world. QS ranking, Times Higher Education ranking. Shanghai Jiaotong is a little tough, seems to me. They're a little mean, Chinese universities, a little unfair. But U.S. News and World Report, you have Beijing, Tsinghua, an extraordinary, among the world's elite universities. And they're rising every year more and more points. And this is why the world is coming to China for higher education. University of Nottingham, Ningbo is one example. University of Liverpool, Suzhou, another. The China-Europe International Business School in Shanghai, an extraordinary place. NYU Shanghai, liberal arts college founded 3 years ago in Shanghai, now in its full third year of operation. Duke Kunshan University, an extraordinary place, and let me just take you to Duke Kunshan. This is from my online course, China X, that I just showed you. Welcome to Kunshan University, Duke Kunshan University. And here we are at DKU in its final months of construction, in the middle of Kunshan, in the middle of Jiangsu province, and I'm here with Dr. Mary Brown Bullock, who is the Executive Vice Chancellor of Duke Kunshan University. Mary, thank you very much for welcoming.
Well, thank you for being here. This is your fourth, fifth, sixth time.
I've been here many times.
Many times, right? So you've seen these buildings grow.
I've seen these buildings grow, and I've seen it grow here. I mean, I've never imagined, quite frankly, it would be as beautiful as it is, this main academic building. But we're in the middle of the most ambitious American effort in higher education in China since the building of Beijing University in the late 1920s, a university that had an enormous impact on China in the Republican period, and then still today as the campus of Peking University. So when one thinks of this, and this is my online course, which I urge you all to take, because it's free. It gives you 5,000 years of Chinese history at a very low price. But when one looks at this, then the question that one has to ask, how can China not lead? What could possibly go wrong? I think then sometimes of a picture such as this, a statue of Mao Zedong outside of many Chinese universities, a man who nearly destroyed Chinese universities during the Cultural Revolution. And it's a picture that, it's just a symbol, but it emphasizes to me, and not just for China, but for many countries, including my own, the dangers of the politicization of knowledge. We had this massively in China in the 1950s and 60s. We had it massively in the United States in the McCarthyite period of the 1950s. It's a danger for many societies. My own teacher, John King who learned his Chinese history at Tsinghua University here in Beijing, he was accused of being a traitor to the United States because of his urging of normalization of relations with the People's Republic of China in the 1950s. So this is a danger in every society. And there is a phrase, and we can get beyond German, we need to look at that for the moment. There's a phrase that's current in China in the last 10 years. Let me give it to you in Chinese. 学术研究无禁区，课程教学有纪律。Research has no forbidden boundaries, but teaching must have discipline. And with this, I have to say, as a friend, I respectfully disagree. And let me give you an example. Harvard and several Chinese universities are part of the edX platform of online courses. And there's a new edX course coming out of Tsinghua University, and it's called Mao Zedong Sishang Daiyong, Introduction to Chairman Mao's Thought. And it's a wonderful, interesting course to watch. It has a promotional video, which is a dong bong, sing all of these things. But some of my Harvard faculty members say we should not let it on our platform. One of my colleagues, Rod McFarker, who knows China very well, says that Harvard should censor this. It's pure propaganda, he says. It shouldn't play in Harvard's own red square. And I totally disagree. And I said no. And I said recently to a reporter of the Harvard Crimson, our student newspaper, it's kind of our version of the Global Times. I said, quote, if Harvard is in the business of teaching and learning in a global context, we must engage with multiple perspectives. We cannot censor, and we will not censor. And the fact is, my friends, that the harmony of civilizations will depend on places above all, like universities, where differences can be discussed openly, where we can agree, and where we can respectfully disagree. And the fact is that any great university must be a place where any question can be asked, if answered in different ways. There cannot be, there should not be, either at Harvard or at Beijing, even one question that cannot be asked, let alone 7 questions that cannot be asked. Beyond this, the greatness of a university is in the long run rooted also in the quality of our faculty and of our students, and in a system of governance that liberates our students and faculty to excel. This is particularly important in China, which is home to the greatest amount and quality of human capital in the world. Good governance for universities is never easy. And just a decade ago, my university, Harvard, had a real crisis, a major crisis of governance. For good governance for today's China, but I would say also for my university, one might summarize some recommendations in the following 16 characters. 办学自主，正校分开，教师治学，校长治校。Autonomy in university management, the separation of politics from the university, faculty taking the lead in academic matters, and all under the leadership of the president. I think it's good advice for any university, in particular my own. And China's great universities, such as Peking University, have among the strongest traditions of academic excellence in a global scale, going back a century and more. So to answer and to conclude this question, can China lead? Can Chinese universities lead? The answer is yes, of course. They can, and they must. For this is no longer a world in which any single nation can lead alone. And indeed, this is their moment. This is, in fact, your moment. And your friends around the world encourage you to seize it. Thank you very much.